Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart. Both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell. This is book number 3 in his Warlord Chronicles, his trilogy about King Arthur. Book number 1 I reviewed, it's The Winter King. Book number 2 I also reviewed, The Enemy of God. And now we're to the final book. And I'm telling you right now, this is the best written series, adaptation, whatever you want to call it, about King Arthur on the planet. And trust me, I've read a shit ton of them. And Bernard Cornwell's trilogy here is by far the best. Jack White's is a close second, and then there's some others. But we'll eventually read and review all those books too. But let's talk about Excalibur here. The cover, which I really like, each one of them has a different cover. And while we're talking about that, you know, if I get my books signed by authors I love, I show that off. So let's show off the signature to me from Bernard Cornwell. And he has signed all of these. They've all got a different cover or style by a different artist, and quite frankly, none of the spines really match up at all. But that's okay. I mean, that is a minor quibble that I'm willing to overlook just because these books are so awesome. So the cover was done by one David Bowers. I think I might have mentioned that. Anyway, it's a cool looking cover. Medieval scene, Excalibur. Now, the entire series is told through the perspective of a young squire. Well, he is a young squire in this book, and then he goes on to become a knight in the other books. But his name is Durfee. D-E-R-F-E-L. Not to be mistaken with Durfee. Although, since Durfee's name was so close to my name, I just pictured myself as Durfee. So all the adventures Durfee had in the Warlord Chronicles were the same adventures Durfee had in the Warlord Chronicles, if you follow. It makes no sense, but I'm thinking you're following it. So Durfee is an old person, and he's writing this story about King Arthur down before he dies. He wants to get it written before he dies. And we find this out in book 1. And so these are the writings of Durfee. And he's a good writer. Durfee is an awesome writer. I mean, I'm just saying. We've got a lot in common, me and Durfee. And he's writing the story of King Arthur to amuse not only himself, but also his young friend Igraine. And he's doing it in secret because he doesn't want the bad people to find out that he's writing the history of King Arthur, because the bad people don't want the history of King Arthur to be written. But he's doing it anyway. And it's, like I said, it's great. Let's be honest. Bernard Cornwell is writing them. It's not an actual guy named Durfee, right? I mean, it's Bernard Cornwell is writing the book, and his prose is some of the best. It's Bernard Cornwell. If you want to learn how to write epic fantasy or historical fiction, read Bernard Cornwell, because his stuff is like a masterclass in how to set things in a medieval world and have everything, every word that you've placed in these books just dripping with medieval flavor. And that's what he's got here. And I can't stress that enough. A masterclass. So, we begin with Guinevere. And we're not going to rehash what happens here. Let's just know that we begin here. Guinevere has been imprisoned for her affair with Lancelot. And Lancelot himself has fled the country because he's a bad guy. In fact, I was talking to Mike at Mike's book reviews just the other day about Lancelot in this book and how he's probably one of the most evil characters in fiction that you just love to hate. That every time he steps on scene, you're glad he's there because you know shit's gonna happen, right? You know that he's going to irritate every single person in the scene with him, and he's going to irritate the reader too because he's such a frustrating dude. And you hate him from the moment you meet him in book one all the way throughout these three books. Just one of the most brilliantly written villains ever is Lancelot. He's the type of guy that everybody hates, and you can relate to your hatred. I mean, you know that guy that you work with that takes credit for everybody else's work? Or he just boasts that he's the best and you know he ain't done shit? That's Lancelot. He takes credit for wars that were won that he never even was at. And he boasts nonstop. Oh, he's just a great villain. And he does dastardly things. Evil things. Murderous things. I mean, he's just a bad dude. Anyway, I can't get over how great of a character that was. And actually, it upstages. Lancelot and Guinevere almost upstage Arthur in this. Actually, they do. They just do. Arthur is a good guy. Arthur just is like the Ned Stark of this series, where he just wants peace. He's like William Wallace. He just wants, in the Braveheart film, where he just wants a wife and a kid and a farm. That's all he wants, but yet he's been thrust into this situation where he's got to be a battle lord. And the battles are magnificent in these series. The battles and the fates of every single character we've come to love is decided by the end of this book. The fates of Bors and Gawain and Galahad and Merlin and Senwyn and Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot. I mean, even Guinevere gets involved in these battles where she hasn't really before. She holds her own fine. I mean, it's a bloodbath. There's these battles are so richly written that you just feel the smashing of the armor and the blade slicing into people. He just does such a eloquent job of describing gruesome battle scenes. And Guinevere's conversations with Durfee, our main character, because everybody wants Arthur to just kill her. Why imprison her? She's cheated on you. She's a betrayer. She's traitorous. She's treasonous. Just kill her. And instead he's put her in prison. And everybody wants King Arthur to just kill the bitch. And they ever want him to hunt down Lancelot. But he's just like, I got other things to bother with me. And I'm not going to do that. And so Durfee is sort of the liaison between Guinevere and Arthur. And the conversations between Durfee and Guinevere are just some of the most brilliantly written conversations I've read in a long time. I just absolutely was delighted whenever those two would get together and talk. Because there's just a dynamic sort of different worldview that each character has. Guinevere is what she's after and what Durfee are after. Couldn't be opposite, but yet they actually speak to each other without, canceling the other. Anyway. So, this book has, I don't know how to say, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's dramatic. It's pitiful. It's redemptive. And the fate of Sir Lancelot at the hands of, and I'm not going to tell you who kills him. It could have been any of the characters that I mentioned. Who did I mention? Bors, Gawain, Galahad, Merlin, Senwyn, Arthur, Durfee, Guinevere. The fate of Lancelot at the hands of one of our characters is, like I said, I don't know whether to say it's redemptive or pitiful or both at the same time, but it's certainly one of the most dramatic scenes that I think Bernard Cornwell has ever written. Long story short, I'm just going to say Durfee is the ultimate hero of this story. He is the narrator. Everything we see through his eyes. He's involved in every bit of drama that this story has. It's his tale. And I like that about it. I like getting the story told from a young peasant boy who just grows up and falls into this sort of war and becomes such a great fighter that he garners the attention of Lancelot and Guinevere and King Arthur, and just he holds his own throughout the story as one of the more badass characters in fiction. Durfee. Or Durfee, whoever you want it to be. To me, it was I was Durfee the whole way through, so of course I'm going to think that he was the hero of the story. But he really is. I mean, he is the one that we follow this through, and he's the one that we're rooting for most, because we can see inside of his head, and we can see the goodness and graciousness and forgiveness that he's got. Whereas the other characters, even King Arthur, starts to he doesn't remain Ned Stark loyal. I mean, this King Arthur can be swayed. Sorry about the coughing. Let me take a drink from one of our sponsors. And then we shall give this a solid 10 out of 10 stars, as every single book in the trilogy deserves a 10 out of 10 stars. There are few trilogies on this planet as good as this. If I was to do, I don't know, top 10, I don't know where this would fall. I've got so many top 10 lists on this channel, and I know this is mentioned in a lot of them, but let's give Excalibur a 10 out of 10, just like the other 3 books got. And then let's start reviewing some other Bernard Cornwell books, because I got all of them. I got every single book that he's written. So maybe we'll do Sharp's Rifles next. Maybe we'll do the Last Kingdom. I don't know. We'll see.